recorded live.
The following show is brought to you by the I Need Wrestling Podcast Network. For more information, please visit www.ineedwrestling.com.
Locked in to another edition of Shotgun Radio with your hosts, the Zigman and Zach Tagus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Shotgun Wrestling Radio here on TalkShoe.com. I am Zach Zigman Grigg, alongside my co-host, Zach Chewy Takus. And Zach, what a big show we got lined up today. Being joined right now on the phone by our guest this week, former WWE superstar, Zach Gowen. Zach Gowen, how are you today?
Doing great. Hello, Zach, and hello, Zach. My name is Zach, and I'm happy to be here, part of the 3Z crew here.
Well, thanks for coming on today, man. We kind of thought we'd get you on and just talk about your career and what you've been up to lately. It's been quite a few years since I think a lot of fans have seen you, unless they're familiar with the, I think it's Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Is that right?
Yeah, that's who I wrestle full-time now for Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and I first of all, I want to send some gratitude towards you guys. I appreciate the time, effort, and interest in hearing what I have to say. It's certainly appreciated.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you having on. So we're going to get started into the interview right now. At what age did you decide you wanted to become a pro wrestler?
I would say when I was 16. And for those listening who don't know, I am the at one point I guess I'm the first world's only one-legged professional wrestler. I lost my leg when I was 8 years old to cancer. And I would say, about 16, I grew up a huge wrestling fan. And wrestling has played a pivotal role throughout my life. When I was a kid, I used it as a form of escape, man, with the I had cancer, and there was abusive, broken home growing up, and as far as being bullied and stuff like that, and feeling different. When I watched wrestling, all of that went away, and that's why I'm so proud of, and so grateful to be a part of professional wrestling, because it means so much to so many people, and it's been a wild ride, but yeah, when I was 16, that's when I had it planted in my head that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I never thought having one leg would help or hinder me. I always thought it was my size or lack thereof that would prevent me from being a wrestler. But when I saw Rey Mysterio for the first time, and I saw his amazing acrobatic, beautiful, death-defying maneuvers, I thought to myself, I can do that. And I saw a guy his size be successful, and that really planted the seed of inspiration for me to become a professional wrestler.
Now, who were some of your biggest influences growing up? I know you just mentioned Rey Mysterio, but I assume, because I think I was talking to Zach, and I think we're about roughly in the same age group, so we probably all grew up in the 80s and 90s era with the Hulk Hogan's and the Ultimate Warriors and the Macho Man. Who were some of your biggest influences as you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I was a fan of everybody. I loved whoever they were showcasing on TV, whether it was Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. I'm born and raised in Detroit, and so it was really, I think it's more WWF country up here. And so I loved the Ultimate Warrior, I loved Hulk Hogan, I loved Rick Rude, I loved Earthquake, I loved the Legion of Doom, these big, muscled up, colorful guys. These are the guys that, were synonymous with professional wrestling to me. But as far as influences, into being a wrestler. It was guys like I said, Rey Mysterio, a lot of the luchadors, a lot of the smaller guys, and ECW was a big influence to me in the 90s when I first saw Sabu. I couldn't really believe what I was seeing. I saw, Rob Van Dam was doing something completely different, stuff like that. So when I became a wrestler, basically I wanted to be, the one-legged version of Sabu, the one-legged version of Rob Van Dam. And because that style to me, their interpretation of what professional wrestling is really entertained me, and I wanted to be just like them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. As the business kind of grew, you started to see smaller and smaller guys getting into the business. And even when I was younger, I was like, man, I would love to do that, but I'm 5'5", so I'm like, I never really gave it much thought. It's like, it's amazing to see these guys who are my height and even a little shorter than me doing amazing moves like you do. I'm just like, wow, I actually probably could have done that.
Right, these athletes are so incredible, and it's kind of funny to think about now. I didn't really think about my legs being an issue at all. I knew that I was, I'm kind of tall, I guess. I'm 6'1", but I'm skinny, and I thought that would be the biggest hindrance. But I'm athletic on top of that. I've always been an athlete my whole life, so I knew I could perform these maneuvers, and I knew I could, do Sabu moves and RVD moves and Rey Mysterio moves. But the leg really wasn't even a factor at all. And I think that ignorance helped me, because if I sat down and really thought about it, I probably would have talked myself out of being a wrestler. But I really know any different, and so I just went in trying to emulate those guys that had a huge influence on me.
That's actually a pretty good transition into my next question that I have. When you lost your leg, did you feel like you were never going to be a wrestler? And who helped motivate you to becoming a wrestler and not giving up on your dream?
That's a good question, man. I didn't want to be a wrestler when I was 8 years old. So I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. That was my dream. And I kind of knew that the amputation of my leg would prevent that. And so there was a depression. There was depression because I couldn't play sports the way I used to. I couldn't, run with my friends. I felt different, and that's hard for any kid. And that's when wrestling came into the picture big time for me. It made me feel like I was part of a group, and it made me feel like because I could go to school and talk about wrestling, and I could sit with my friends and watch wrestling, and wrestling became my life after the amputation. So I don't think I would even be in wrestling if that didn't happen. And that kind of goes back to everything happens for a reason, which I truly, truly believe. And as far as people who helped me along the way, everybody helped me along the way. I was trained by Truth Martini here in Detroit. He runs the House of Truth Wrestling School, which I believe is the best wrestling school in the world. And he helped me tremendously in the beginning. I went to WWE and working in WWE with those at the time some of the all-time greats. I was on the road with them. So just picking up knowledge from riding in cars or sitting in hotels or sitting in locker rooms was invaluable. And so I think a lot of people wanted me to succeed. Because it was something different and it was something special, and so I definitely appreciate all the help I got along the way.
Yeah, and talking about your training, that also leads into our next question. What was your training like? And I guess, was it hard to train with only one leg? And I guess, do you have any good training day stories? Everybody always has a different training experience, I guess.
Sure, man. A lot of people ask me that question, and I don't really know how to answer it because I don't know what it's like to train with two legs or what it's like to wrestle with two legs. People ask me, is it harder to wrestle with one leg? And I had nothing to compare it to, so I don't know. Luckily for me, I'm a pretty good athlete and I picked things up fairly quickly. And if there was something, in training that physically I couldn't do, I would find a way around it. And I just kind of used my disadvantage or my disability to my advantage. And I think that really helped me. As far as training stories, man, I always trained like everybody else. I remember my first day of class. I walked into the school. I took my leg off, and I put my wrestling shoe on. And I don't think anybody knew I had one leg before I did that. Because I talked to the trainers and stuff like that before, to set up the school or whatever. And so I got there, and I took my leg off, and everyone's just kind of like you're at a party, and the record player just kind of gets scratched off. That was the moment, and people just kind of looked at me, and then I was ignored for like 2 hours. So I was sitting there for 2 hours, with my leg on the floor by my side. I felt kind of strange and weird, but then the trainer at the time invited me into the ring, and he looked at me. He looked at my foot. I had my high school amateur wrestling shoe on, and he asked me if I wrestled in high school, and I said I did. And he goes, good. He goes, I took a back bump. And I said, is that where you fall on your back? And he goes, yeah. And my first bump I took was perfect. And then he goes, good. He goes, I take a front bump. And I go, is that where you flipped and land on your back? He goes, yeah. And I did that, and it was perfect. He goes, good. I can train you to be a wrestler. I said, thank you very much. And then from then on, I was at school every day. I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave. I cleaned up. I just couldn't get enough of it. I just loved the feeling of being in a wrestling ring. It was magic to me. And from that point on, nothing was going to stop me from living out my dream.
Now, after you got done with, the initial training, when and where was your first match, and what was that feeling like, just being able to finally have your first match in the books and done with?
That's an amazing feeling. My first match was March 16, 2002, in Livonia, Michigan, at an old abandoned warehouse in front of about 30 people. And I would say 10 of them were my friends and family that I invited out. And that was incredible. I remember having the match and just kind of like when I got to the back, just kind of sitting there quietly, just marinating in that feeling of accomplishment, and that amazed that I've only had that feeling one time, and I've done some amazing things in wrestling, but I've never captured the feeling of having that first match. It was awesome.
Now, before you went to WWE, you made some appearances in TNA early on. How did that, come about, and how nervous were you, to try to finally get on the, somewhat the big stage in wrestling?
Sure. That was huge for me because I had about 20 matches before I went to TNA. I went to TNA in January of 2003. I started in March of 2002. And I would just do local shows around Detroit up until that point. What happened is I sent an email and a tape to Bill Behrens, who was the guy who coordinated the trial matches and the dark matches and things like that in TNA. And he saw my tape, and he called me up on a Monday and asked me if I could be down there on Wednesday to do a dark match before their pay-per-view, and I said, of course, not really knowing how I was going to get down there, but I found a way. And I got down there, and I wrestled Truth Martini, the guy who trained me in the dark match, and we got a great reception from the fans, from the office, from the wrestlers in the back, and I think just from that dark match, it created quite a buzz in the wrestling industry, and WWE tried to sign me off of that dark match without really knowing who I was or what I looked like, but just that dark match alone created such a buzz. They tried to sign me. They ended up, funnily enough, they signed the wrong one-legged guy. And a few weeks later, they corrected all that, and they signed me. and that was an awesome feeling, man, to wrestle in front of that many people and to get that great of a response from everybody. It was amazing, and that just kind of like sparked the whole that really got the snowball moving down the hill, man, and it really gained momentum after that.
Now, when you were down there, did you get a chance to meet Dixie? And if so, what were your impressions on her and your impressions on the Jarretts? Because I think at the time when you first went down, I think the Jarretts were still in mostly control of that company.
Yeah, I think Jerry Jarrett was the man running things down there. Dixie wasn't in the picture yet. And the Jarretts were awesome, man. They were always very, very good to me. I know they were disappointed when I decided to go with WWE instead of TNA. But at the time, I did what I thought was right. And since then, I've worked for them, a number of times over the years. And Dixie's a sweetheart. And I wish her the best of luck in what she's doing, and I hope to see her real soon. And the Jarretts, I was a big fan of Jeff, pretty much, growing up, and even now I think, he's so talented. And Jerry Jarrett, I don't really remember talking too much to him, but, of course I have a respect for him as well, and for what he's accomplished throughout his long, awesome career. And, yeah, man, everybody down there in TNA has been very, very good to me.
Now, fast forward, I guess, to getting the call from WWE. What was going through your head, I guess, when you got the call, and how excited were you when you finally got the call to actually come to WWE after being a fan for so long?
That was amazing. Johnny Yates called me on my, I was living with my mom at the time, and he called me on my mom's house phone, and I talked to him, and I knew right away that's where I was going. And honestly, it kind of felt like a dream. Like it just felt like it's kind of hard to describe. Being such a huge fan my whole life, and then at 19 years old talking to Johnny Ace about contract issues and money and TV and pay-per-view and media appearances. It was amazing, absolutely amazing.
What was it like when you walked into the WWE locker room for the first time, and I guess, how did everyone treat you for that first time you walked in there?
Sure. It was at the First Mariner Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. I walked in, and I was super nervous and excited and anxious. And I remember I walked in, and I saw Rhino. I knew Rhino from Detroit. Rhino and Spanky kind of took me under their wing and introduced me to everybody, and everybody was really friendly. And I remember I was waiting there, and a producer grabbed me and asked me to come to Hulk Hogan's locker room to discuss the angle we're doing that night. So I was like, all right, cool, man. So I walked with him to Hogan's locker room, and in Hogan's locker room there's Vince McMahon. Hello, Vince. Nice to meet you. And there's Roddy Piper. Hello, Mr. Piper. Nice to meet you. And I hopped out of the shower, naked as the day he was born. And so that was my first impression of Hulk Hogan, a very giant, naked Hulk Hogan. And I said, hello, Mr. Hogan. Nice to meet you. And, it was surreal. It was absolutely amazing. Those three cultural icons in one place, and one of them's naked. And we're going to be working together from that point on. Like it was awesome, man. I couldn't picture it. I couldn't picture a start of a WWE career going any better than working with those three guys.
Yeah, that would definitely leave a everlasting impression of Hulk Hogan.
Sure.
What were your first impressions of meeting Vince, and did you meet him prior to walking into the dressing room that day?
No, I didn't. I handled all my contract stuff with Johnny Ace, and I they flew me into the Titan Towers, and I took a tour of the offices, and I met everybody. But I didn't meet Vince until that day in Maryland at the SmackDown tape. Vince, man, he's Vince McMahon, you know. But he was super friendly, and that kind of took me by surprise a little bit. But he was super friendly and super helpful, and he was like cool. That's how I describe him. Like, he was a really cool dude. And he, you know, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity, and it was amazing just being able to, you know, work in that company, and on top of that, working on top of the card with those guys. It was unbelievable.
Now, what was it like when you actually, I think they introduced you with the Mr. America gimmick that Hulk Hogan was doing. What was that like, being your first angle and you get to work with an icon of that stature, Hulk Hogan? What was that like, working with him from the get-go?
Like I said earlier, man, it felt really every day. It felt like a dream. Like I was waking up in dreamland. You know, I was on the road. I was doing what I loved the most with the biggest and best company in the world, and on top of that, working with Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and Japan. That was, and I'm partially surprised that they let me. They had me do that because I was so green. I knew nothing about wrestling. I wasn't good. You know, I was so immature just as a human being at that time, and that was a lot of responsibility to be an angle with those guys. You know, right off the bat. So I'm kind of partially surprised they even went through with it. I'm glad they did, but it was awesome, man. It was like I said, it was like waking up every day in a dream. It was incredible.
Now, after that feud, it led to your feud with Vince and eventually a match with him. What was it like working with him, and I guess did he give you any advice? And also, what kind of a wrestler is Vince? I've heard a lot of mixed reactions from guys about what kind of a wrestler Vince is.
What kind of wrestler is Vince?
Yeah.
He's not a wrestler at all. Certainly an athletic guy. He's certainly a very guy that takes pride in his physical appearance and his health. But he's not a wrestler. I mean, he'll be the first one to tell you that. In the ring with him, I remember I was punching him. And then he looked at me, he goes, "Punch me." So I gave him another, you know, wrestling punch, and he goes, "No, punch me for real." And I'm like, "What?" I go, "I don't want to punch my boss in the face for real, you know?" But he goes, "Listen, I'm not a wrestler. If I don't feel it, I can't sell it, you know? Like, you have to hit me for real. I wrestler." So I said, "All right." So I pulled back, and I gave him a few shots, and he's like, "Yeah, that's it, kid. Keep him coming. And I'm like, all right, cool. So here I am in the middle of the ring on a pay-per-view, just punching Vince in the face as hard as I can, you know? Like, it's silly to think about. Like, now, having that perspective, being 28 years old, looking back, like, it's silly that I was even in that position. But it's still amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. And you know, that'll always be something that I'll have, that'll live on forever. It'll live on forever in magazines, DVDs, and you know, things like that. So I'm just, yeah, it's kind of funny to think about. But yeah, Vince isn't a wrestler, but he certainly worked super hard, and he was willing to do anything anybody else would, which I think inspires other guys to work as hard as they can, because if Vince is willing to do it at 50-some years old, then everyone else should be able to be at the top of the game too. You know?
Now, also with that Vince feud, I think you had Stephanie working kind of as your, I guess, manager, you could call her. What was it like working with her? And I guess did either McMahon, Hogan, or any of the guys you first worked with, how helpful were they at giving you advice, since at that time you were so young and very green? How helpful were they to you?
They were awesome, man. Hogan didn't have to really talk to me at all except when we worked together. But he went out of his way and he sat me down a few times and he helped me out, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And Stephanie, she's one of the I think she's one of the smartest women I've ever met in my life. She's incredibly smart, and she's sharp, and she's witty, and she's really, really sweet. She's a genuinely sweet person, and that to me that I find that very attractive, and not in like a physical sense or anything, but like in any person who has a genuine sweetness about him or wholesome goodness about him, and Stephanie was that person, and we would travel a lot together to do media and stuff like that, and she was incredibly helpful in that aspect as far as doing radio interviews or morning show TV interviews, stuff like that. She's really she had a great poise and presence about her, and she helped me out. She helped me out tremendously when she didn't have to as well. So that working with those guys was they did more than they had to do, and I'm very grateful for that.
Now, after the Vince feud, you were kind of thrown into a feud with Brock Lesnar. What was it like being in the ring with a guy of that size like Lesnar, and did he take good care of you in the ring?
Sure, it was scary, man. It was real scary. They turned Brock into a bad guy, and they wanted they needed to do something to get a little steam on his character. So they put him with me and had him beat the crap out of me a few times. And I think it was awesome because while the stuff looked very dangerous and unsafe and brutal, he took complete care of me. And I think that's hard to do with a guy his size and strength, to not hurt somebody. But I think that just shows how good he was and how much of a professional he was, and how talented he was. Like I never had a scratch on me from working with him, and and I just think I'm Brock's biggest fan, man. Whatever he does, whether he comes back to wrestling or he does his UFC thing, he's a big star, and he deserves all the success that he has. That's for sure.
After that, you had kind of a short feud with Matt Hardy. What was it like working with Matt Hardy during his version 1 gimmick? Matt
was awesome. As far as all the guys, I think Matt was the guy I wrestled the most. If you count like all the house shows and things like that, I think Matt taught me the most as far as in-ring stuff for the wrestling stuff, and working with him was a complete pleasure and honor because he was and is very talented, and he certainly helped me out the most as far as my in-ring stuff goes, and how to get the most out of everything, and how to work in front of a live crowd, and how to work in front of a big crowd. And I thought his character was awesome, and he had Shannon Moore with him as his little sidekick. That was like really good stuff. And it was a complete pleasure to work with Matt.
Now, since leaving WWE, you've made some appearances in Ring of Honor. Why don't you talk a little bit about just leaving WWE and your time that you spent with Ring of Honor?
Sure. I left WWE. I got released in 2004. I wasn't getting along with anybody, with a lot of people in the locker room. I was looking back. I was too young and too immature to handle that kind of responsibility, and I didn't really know how to conduct myself. I didn't really know how to conduct myself at all, even as a human being. In my head, I was still a kid, and so they had to release me, which, looking back, decision. After I got released, I did some stuff with TNA. I did some stuff with Ring of Honor. I enjoyed everybody in Ring of Honor. Treated me really well. Their vision, I think, I don't really fit in. I've never really fit in with what their vision is. Of their interpretation of pro wrestling and what they want to present in their fan base. I never really fit in completely with that. So so it wasn't like a long-term thing. There's just, a few shows here and there. And but I enjoy my time there, man. I have a lot of friends there. I'm friendly with all the guys there. But I have a lot of really close friends that work for Ring of Honor, and I really wish them the best. I think this Sinclair TV thing's going to take off, and I think it's going to be a smash hit. And I think those guys deserve it for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I actually work for a Sinclair company here in Iowa, and I was really excited to find out that we're going to be actually airing Ring of Honor on the weekend. So I was pretty excited for them as far as that deal goes. Since appearing for WWE, you also made an appearance for TNA. I think it was 2007 in one of the Battle Royals that they had at one of the pay-per-views. What was it like, I guess, coming back to TNA even for just a one-shot deal?
For TNA, it was awesome. I had, it's kind of a last-minute thing, and they called me up, we worked it out, and I was there, and it was cool to be back in that locker room with a lot of my friends, I just wish, I've kind of looking back, like I wish I could have gotten some momentum going, because I had so many opportunities, man. I had opportunities in TNA, I had opportunities in Ring of Honor, I had opportunities in All Japan, I had opportunities in Europe at the time too, but my lifestyle at the time wasn't conducive to having a good professional steady career, man. I was for a long time, especially after WWE, I got caught up in drugs and alcohol, and that's where I found my answer to all my problems. And with that lifestyle, I couldn't maintain any kind of professional success. I would have some shots here and there, but I would blow them. I'd show up loaded, or I wouldn't show up at all, and I started getting a bad reputation, which made me a little bitter, which probably contributed to me consuming more drugs, which messed up my career even more. So it became this horrible downward spiral of crap. And I thank God I got I got sick and tired of just being sick and tired and miserable and living in that pain. And I reached out for help for the first time, and I genuinely meant it, because I couldn't go on living like that anymore. And through the WWE wellness policy, they paid for my rehabilitation, which saved my life, and that was over a year and a half ago, and I've been doing my thing since, and I've been rebuilding my career, and I've been branching out. I've had I'm having the courage to branch out into other avenues, such as writing my book and speaking and working with various charities, and honestly, right. Over a year and a half ago, I made that phone call to WWE, and that got the ball rolling, and one thing led to another, and here we are talking about it. So, it's been an awesome journey, man. It really has. The ups and downs I wouldn't trade. Because here I am, of healthy, sound, mind, body, and spiritually fit, man, and it feels pretty darn good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, man. It's good to hear wrestlers who end up in that kind of problems actually seeking out and getting help, especially young guys like yourself, because now you can continue to have a longer career than what you probably would have.
Sure, man, and honestly, I don't think I'd be alive right now with the way I was going, and I don't want to blame, wrestling. It's certainly not just a wrestling problem. I've been, I've had this hole inside of me since I was a kid. I've been restless, irritable, and discontent since I can remember, and for a while, being in WWE and living that lifestyle that filled that hole. But when that left, I was bankrupt, and I was bankrupt spiritually, and so to use a cliche, I filled that hole with other things, women, gambling, drugs, alcohol, you name it, anything to not feel that pain. But eventually the pain came back, and it was greater than ever, and I had to do something about it. So I definitely don't want to blame wrestling, because I believe that wrestling helped me when I was a child, growing up, and just, as a tangible fact, wrestling and my work with WWE led to me going to treatment, and that saved my life. So wrestling has definitely been a huge role in my whole life, but it also saved my life too, over a year and a half ago. So I'm forever grateful to the WWE for having that program at that time.
Now, you mentioned earlier on in the interview that you work now for Juggalo Championship Wrestling. How did you get involved with them, and if you could talk a little bit about that?
Sure, man. JCW is awesome, and it's if you're a wrestling fan that likes over-the-top characters and likes kind of like a mixed bag of wrestling, not just kind of like one thing throughout the show. There's the high flyers, there's the good wrestlers, there's the hardcore wrestlers, there's over-the-top characters. It's funny, it's entertaining. I've known the Insane Clown Posse probably for 10 years now. Their offices are right around the block from the house I grew up in. And they've always been super supportive of me, even at times when they probably shouldn't have. They were definitely a bridge I burned along the way as well. And about 6 months, 8 months, 9 months ago, they gave me a second opportunity to work for them, and things have been great since. And I'm so grateful for that. That people are giving me a second chance and giving me a second look. And, I just hope to be able to deliver on what I promise, And, things have been great with them. They got a tour coming up, a 5-week tour. We're on iPay-per-views every other Wednesday. And we just did The Gathering, which was huge, with Terry Funk and Roddy Piper and Bob Orton and all these amazing legends. Mick Foley was there. It was awesome, man, and it feels really good to be a part of it. The best part is it feels good to be given a second chance and to be able to have this opportunity and to take full advantage of it and run with it. That feels even better than anything possibly could. So I'm really happy with what I'm doing there, and I'm really happy for the opportunity that they gave me.
Now, you mentioned earlier you're in the process of writing a book. Any idea, I guess, when we can expect that to come out?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to come out next summer. And, it's a process, man, because I'm writing it with a well-known writer and producer. And, he's an amazing writer. And he possesses the writing skills I don't have. I have the story. He knows how to write it. So the process it's taking a long time because I want it to be right. I want it to be in my voice. I want it to be perfect. Because I think a lot of people are going to read it and find inspiration in my story. And the whole goal with writing a book, basically nobody gets rich off writing a book unless you're Stephen King or something. My whole goal with writing a book is to help people and plant seeds of inspiration and have it kind of coincide with my speaking career. And that's kind of like where my life is right now. I share my story with anybody and everybody, because the more I do that, the stronger I feel and the healthier I feel. And the more people I help, the better I feel, from that. So that's kind of like where my life is right now at this moment. And I just love how everything's coming together, and I think it's a really great project, and I hope people will give it a chance and read it when it comes out.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it would be an inspirational book, and what should be a good read as the ride that you've had. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you want to let fans know where they can get in contact with you, either your Twitter page, your Facebook page, or if you want to go ahead and throw that information out for fans where they can get in touch with you.
Sure, man. I appreciate that. It's I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/Zach Gowen, Facebook.com/Zach Gowen, ZachGowen.com. My email's on there. I appreciate all the love and all the support I get from fans around the world. And it's funny to me. 9 years ago, I was really just a kid, not really knowing what he was doing, but I left an impression on some people, man, and that's really it's really positive and good for me to get that awesome feedback. So I definitely appreciate everyone out there, and I appreciate too everyone who listens to this interview, man, and to hear what I have to say. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate you having you on, and we would love to have you on next summer once your book comes out to help you promote the book as well.
Yeah, man. Whenever you want to have me back on, guys, we'll the Zach Attack, and we will we can talk about wrestling. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Sometimes I feel weird and self-conscious talking about myself. You know what I mean? So so whenever you guys want to do it, man, I'm available.
Sounds good. Well, congratulations again on getting yourself cleaned up and your sobriety and everything, and hope you continue on the right path with that. And again, we want to thank you for coming on the show today, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good one, dude.
All right.